Tonight on Teal Tinted Glasses, we take a look at the last two teams in our Pacific Division preview. We've seen the whole Sharks kit thingy in the wild, and now we have to give our opinions on it. All that and more on tonight's Teal Tinted Glasses. Oh. But as always, if you want to be part of the show, be sure to hit us up on all the social media, Twitter and Twitter some more. Also, find us at tealtownusa.com. If you want to help the show, be sure to give us a like, leave us a comment. And if you're feeling really froggy, hit us up in the super chat. But with that being said, it is time for us to go. It is me, Mr. Ian Blogs Hockey on the Twitter machine, joined by at Hockey_Jerk on the Twitter machine, also known as the Hockey Jerk. Hockey Jerk, how you doing tonight?
You know what? We're here, and it's going to be awesome. I'm excited to get going.
Me too. So let's start with the one little shred of Sharks news that we got. We saw the full Sharks kit kind of in the wild. Logan Couture sporting the all teal, the teal out jerseys, I'm going to call them from now on. And then we saw James Reimer sporting the road whites. What were your thoughts?
They suck. That's the short version. The long, I know Shang did a thing with Doug Bentz, I believe it was last night or today, and one of the things that Doug got into was, wanting to pay homage to the inaugural jerseys, the inaugural season, the kind of first era, while also basically not using it as a crutch and basically looking forward and that kind of stuff, which I completely understand and I support the vision. But this product of that vision, I'm not a fan. I think I really hate to say it, but it looks like somebody took a real jersey and then sent it off to, DHgate, had them make a fake mock-up, and then that fake mock-up became the jersey. It just doesn't look real to me, and the word my fiance used to describe it was embarrassing, and I wouldn't go that far, but I definitely think the Sharks took I don't even want to say a step. They took a leap in the wrong direction, if you ask me.
See, I don't mind the sweaters themselves. I think the sweaters themselves are fine. I don't really have issues with the sweaters themselves. The old teal, it didn't look as bad as I thought it would, based on the mock-up to actual reality. It didn't look as bad. I do like the stripe on the pants. I just think it's a lot of teal.
Mm-hmm.
From that perspective, I don't like it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm this huge fan of everything being teal, but it didn't look as bad. That's not me saying it's good. It just didn't look as bad as I thought it might.
Sure.
The sweaters themselves, I don't really have an issue with. Actually, I like the road setup. I actually like the road setup a lot. I think they look crisp.
Yeah. I think it's possible that I'm kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm just, I guess, I don't even know, biased by the fact that the whole set kind of looks, I mean, I'm looking at the teal right now, and the teal, it's not horrible, but I think with black pants and a black helmet, it would look better.
Yeah.
And the white, it's just, I mean, it's hard to, I don't know why. I love James Reimer. I don't know why Reimer was the one to model it, because you can't even see the socks or the pants.
True.
Or what the helmet and glove setup is going to look like. So I don't know why they had Reimer model it. I don't know. It just looks, very, the white, actually, who would have thought that the white jersey would be better than the teal one? But it just looks very video game to me.
Yeah, I'm usually not a huge fan of the white sweater, but I agree. I think the white in this case is super crisp.
Yeah, and weird, I don't know. I like the teal helmet on its own. I actually think looks pretty slick, but in the ensemble, I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, I mean, it could be worse. It could be like chromatic teal.
Sure.
I mean, so at least we haven't gone down that horrible avenue that that other teams have gone down. But yeah, I don't know. I overall, like I said, I like the sweaters. I think I like the numbers. Like I like the new number kit. I think it's nice. It's fresh. Like it's new, and I think there's a lot of things going to be new about this team, and maybe some that aren't going to be so new, like finishing in the lottery. But I don't know. I don't hate, like, individually. I don't hate it. I think together it's very whelming.
Sure.
I guess I don't know. That's my opinion. You can let me know in the comments if you disagree. I know on the show we did on the weekend, I got some comments about because I said Joe Thornton shouldn't have his number retired. And guys, here's the thing, right? Like, if the Sharks tomorrow said they're gonna hang up Joe's rafter in the ceiling, it's not gonna go on Twitter in an angry tirade. I just wouldn't do it.
I'm the same way. Like, if they ended up doing it, ultimately I'm not gonna give a shit. But I don't even think it's a conversation that should be had. Yeah.
Oh man, now they're gonna come after you too. I love it.
Good. At @hockey_jerk on Twitter.
There you go, guys. Yeah, so before we get into our division preview, we did have a little bit of division news. The LA Kings signed Sean Durzi to a 2-year, $1.7 million AAV contract. When the contract concludes, he will still be an RFA with no arbitration rights. But I think it's a pretty good deal for Sean Durzi.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Sean Durzi, I think he had a rookie year that I think a lot of players would dream of having.
Yeah,
you know, especially on a team when we talked about the LA Kings a couple weeks ago. You know, a team that really needed a shot in the arm on the blue line, and it looks like Durzi has been able to give that to them, and it's a good contract. I mean, you want to obviously reward his really good start, but you don't want to get too ahead of yourself as well. And you know, $1.7 million. It's I think it's fair money. It is over the threshold of contracts that can be 100% buried, but not by much.
Yeah.
And you know, if it really blows up, you can trade the contract, you can waive the contract, and you know, they have a lot of out clauses here, but I don't think they'll have to do that. I mean, he's 23 years old, had a good season, and I don't know about you, but it was, if you ask me, it was looking a little critical for Sean Durzi at one point. It seemed like he was never going to break through.
Yeah. I mean, I like the player. We talked about the Kings last week, and obviously I think like his continued success is going to be a big part of them looking forward to this year, right? I know I wasn't as high on the Kings, I think, as far as we looked at as like I like to call the Pacific Division blender, because that's where I think they sit. But I think if they're going to be successful, I think he has to he's going to have another big year, I think. But getting Drew Doughty back on that blue line, I think is only going to help a guy like Sean Durzi.
I was gonna say that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, getting
him back there. I think it's a good growth contract too.
Yeah, it's a nice little deal. It doesn't obviously, he's not signed into oblivion for ridiculous amounts of money. Obviously, you look at, he's going to still be a restricted free agent when his contract's up. He doesn't even have arbitration rights, so it'll be interesting to see what they do on his next deal based on what he does now, obviously. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens there going forward. But I think it's a good bit of business for Rob Blake.
And I'm glad that you said that. I know. Okay, we're not talking about the Kings this week, but like, nope. I feel like more often than not, Rob Blake has good bits of business. So, you know, as far as like this is concerned, like I think it's just another thing you can add where it's like, yeah, you know, another good signing by Rob Blake, you know, and that's, I know obviously it's going to be to the detriment of the Sharks, but you know, we talked about it last week, you know, the Kings have made a lot of positive steps in the right direction. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, getting Durzi back in the fold, I mean, it can only get better for them. You know, I don't think this hurts them at all.
Yeah, and I think with this signing, I think there's only 8 players now that are still restricted free agents that don't have contracts yet. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to watch that going forward, because I think there's some interesting names there. Maybe we'll touch it at the end of the show. So let's take a look at the Edmonton Oilers. I don't know. Again, I asked this last week and I never got an answer in the comments or anything. I don't know who won the hypothetical Stanley Cup. It could be the Oilers, though. So,
Yeah,
looking at your 2022 hypothetical Stanley Cup champions, Edmonton Oilers, potentially. Now, their current cap hit's obviously going to be really high again. These numbers are just cap friendly today. They're not taking into consideration guys that are going to be put on the IR, moves that are going to get made. So as of today, according to cap friendly, or as of when I wrote this down, $89,281,333, putting them over the cap by $6.781.333 million. Again, but those numbers are not, they're not final here. Projected the outs are a lot of, like, for both of these teams, like a lot of moving pieces on a lot of these teams, especially for a team like Edmonton, who was in the conference final. I thought it's a lot of turnover for a team like that. So out is Josh Archibald, Zach Kassian, Colton Sevier, Kyle Turris retired, Duncan Keith also retired, Chris Russell, and Mikko Koskinen, who we know left. Coming in is Matthias Janmark and goaltender Jack Campbell. As of last I checked, Ryan McLeod still needs a contract. He has one of those 8 RFA contracts remaining, unless something changed that I missed.
Nope, that's still accurate.
So yeah, I mean, and then obviously Mike Smith is going to spend the season on the LTIR, because if he retired now, that would just destroy the cap problems for the Oilers.
And also worth mentioning, which, and it's easy to forget he hasn't played in a long time, but Oscar Klefbom also going to go on the LTIR.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. Which is sad. I love Oscar Klefbom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like with the pandemic, everything is sort of kind of all mushed together, and it's hard to keep track of things. But as it stands right now, this is going to be his 3rd consecutive season of not playing at all.
Yeah, so I mean, the one big addition here is Matthias Janmark, which I really like as like a depth guy, because I think the one thing the Oilers, they have gotten better at this. Like for a while, like the Oilers were just a one-line team,
right?
Depending on which line, if they separated Draisaitl and McDavid, like there was times where this was a one-line team. Whereas I think this team now is obviously a lot deeper up front than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree. I think like all the guys that you mentioned, especially at forward, Archibald, Kassian, Sevier, Turris, I mean, in their own right, they're all decent players. Yeah. They'll do what you ask of them, but I would pick Matthias Janmark before I picked any of those 4 players. And I agree. I thought Janmark, I thought he kind of fizzled out on the Golden Knights, but he's still a good player. He's kind of a, sort of a middle 6 kind of guy, probably 3rd line on a cup team. But if you have an injury, he can play on your 2nd line, and he can do well there. And I think that's what Edmonton needed. Last year was probably the deepest team they've had in a long time. Obviously, the deepest run they've had in a long time, but there was still room to get better. And I think bringing in Matthias Janmark, you make your forwards better. But on top of that, specifically sending out Zach Kassian, I mean, that was the big one. I know Oilers fans, they love Zach Kassian, apparently. But ultimately, $3.25 million is too much to pay for a 4th line winger. And they believe it. They paid a hefty price to rid themselves of that contract, but you know what? It allowed them to, whatever you want to say about Evander Kane, it allowed them to re-sign him, which they clearly wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It allowed them to get Yamamoto signed and Puljujarvi signed and Brett Kulak signed. I mean, the Oilers, as somebody who generally, like, I don't want to say gets off, but enjoys like team building, like, I thought that Oilers, I would say they're in contention for the offseason Stanley Cup. I mean, they got rid of the guys who weren't helping them, and they, made longer term commitments to the guys that were helping them. They brought in some more, help that they didn't have previously. And, I think Edmonton Oilers, I think they did a lot of good work in order to try and get back to the conference final. I'm not totally convinced that they will, but I still think they did a lot of good work to at least try.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's so funny how a summer can change like a team's prospects. So I remember when we did our first show on the Oilers right after they got eliminated from the Cup.
Mm-hmm.
It was really hard to see what, like, because there's so many what ifs, right? Like, we didn't know what the story was going to be with Mike Smith at the time. We didn't know, who was coming back. Was a guy like Evander Kane coming back?
Puljujarvi.
What were they going to do with Puljujarvi? Exactly. So, I mean, it was really hard to draw conclusions, but I think they've had a really good summer, like you said. I like this forward group a lot. I like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I think getting him under contract again they extended him, did they not?
Yeah, that they extended him. That would have been they extended him last summer, 2021, and
right.
they actually got him to take a little bit of a haircut too, which again, when you're talking about team building, like that's huge. Save him $1 million just about.
Yeah, I mean, so I really like this forward group. I think this forward group has potential to put up a lot of. They're gonna score a lot of goals. This team is gonna score a lot of goals.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any questions like that. Like I like, maybe I don't like how long Zach Hyman is signed, but I like that I like that deal for him. Like as far as like what he brings. Jesse Puljujarvi is an interesting one because obviously he's got the 1 year deal where he's going to be an RFA next summer with arbitration rights, and it'll be interesting to see how they approach him because it feels like that's the guy that the media wants to run out of town.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to see what kind of season he has. I really like Killer Yamamoto. I've always liked him. And I think their bottom six is fine too. Like it's their bottom six doesn't blow me away, but I think, I think the third line's pretty decent. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they skate as their fourth line, but I think like their top six though, I think is among the best in the league.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it is hard to tell kind of how that bottom six is going to shape out. I mean, just looking at it, I mean, I feel like the knock on Puljujarvi has been, ice time and situational deployment and that kind of stuff. And the way I'm looking at things, I don't see him playing higher than third line and second power play. And so then, it creates the question of, okay, if you say you put him with Warren Foegele, one of Kevin's favorite players, if you put him with Foegele and you put him with Matthias Janmark, is that enough for a third line? And I don't know. I mean, maybe it is, but Janmark, he does have experience playing center, but I'm not overly confident with his ability as a center. And I know Puljujarvi signed, he obviously re-signed, and it was, a lot of people were happy, and it was a sign that, the bridge had been built, I guess. But, I still wonder if it's more likely that he's traded at this point, just because I don't see a situation where he moves up in the lineup given who's in the top six.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely going to be fascinating to watch. Moving on to the blue line. The blue line's it's okay.
I think that's being polite.
It's okay.
I would take Evan Bouchard and you can leave everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I like Darnell Nurse a lot, but
me too. Man, but
that money,
that contract is brutal.
Yeah,
like it's again, I like Darnell Nurse too. I think he kind of brings everything you want in an everyday defenseman. He's physical. He does everything that you need out of your number one defenseman. But $9.25 million is very rich.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, I know everybody sort of had stars in their eyes after, after I believe it was the Hub season where he, 36 points in 56 games. But even that, I think, that right there, I don't think is $9.25 million worth of money. And, and so you're already kind of behind the eight ball as it is. And now he's expected to grow on that and do even more. And so I don't know. I mean, I look at that but again, that's, you still like the player, right? It's something that you can massage and you can figure out how to deal with. But Tyson Berry, same kind of thing. Tyson Berry had, a really good Hub season, And when I say hub, I mean 2020, 2021,
Mm-hmm.
when it was all inner division. He had a really good hub season and then kind of came back down to earth. Cody Ceci famously has not been worth the contract he signed to, yet he keeps getting them.
I know.
Somehow. And so that's kind of an anchor. We talked about Brett Kulak as well. I think bringing back Brett Kulak was an underrated, like, sneaky move by them. But again, you just look at this, like, Nurse, Kulak, Bouchard. Like, if you've got three defensemen, and again, we talked about Vegas only needing three defensemen, and they can figure it out. I like those three defensemen I mentioned, but they're not of the same ilk that Vegas's three defensemen are. And if I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan, obviously you like Philip Broberg. You hope that he can do what Bouchard did last year. But if I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan, I would love to find someone to replace Barry. I would love to find someone to replace Cody Ceci, just because. And I'm starting to realize that this is a theme with the Pacific Division, where it seems like every team could stand to make their blue line better.
Yeah. The one thing I think, other than like, maybe other than like, I guess Vegas in their other side, but I'll take Vegas's top three over anyone else in the Pacific.
Totally. Yeah. But beyond that, it's kind of, it's
kind
a
of
bit dicey, especially, we'll get into it obviously, but it sounds like that Vegas and Nick Hague are actually pretty far apart.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't help them.
Yeah. And in goal, obviously the big change in goal this year is going to be Jack Campbell in net.
It's interesting.
Jack Campbell's an interesting guy, right? Because I think he's like, I don't dislike Jack Campbell, and I always wonder if he's just one of these like late blooming goalies that just puts it together. I mean, and look at Jack Campbell's only
Tim Thomas.
Yeah, like and let's be fair here. Jack Campbell's only 30 years old, so it's not like he's like on the back nine of his career. Right. By any stretch of the imagination here. But I just wonder if he's going to be like one of these late blooming guys. But I mean, and that's the gamble here, right? Like, that's the gamble that they've made with him, because they got him signed for term. Like, he's here for the next 5 years at $5 million. And it's going to be, I'm curious to see how that works out, because I just look at some of these other teams, right? I just like the Canadian teams in general, like just the weird goalie moves that everyone's made.
Well, and it's obviously going from LA to Toronto was huge for Jack Campbell. I mean, he got to be a starting goalie, and like, I'm with you. I like Jack Campbell. I think he's a decent
guy
goalie,
battles.
Yeah, absolutely. But I look at what he did the first half of last season compared to the second half and in the playoffs, and I worry about, well, I don't worry about it, but if I was an Oilers fan, I'd worry about his longevity. Can he get 55, 60 starts? Again, recent history would tell you that he could, but it's not going to be without some growing pains. And kind of couple that with their frankly subpar defense, and I that's not to say that you should be dreading the season if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, but I would be cautiously optimistic about what you have going on back there. And I don't know, that, like I said, it's kind of an odd situation, because I thought, from the Edmonton Oilers perspective, I thought there were better goalies available. Like, and who's to say who they talked to and who they didn't, but like Darcy Kemper was available. I think I would have taken him over Jack Campbell, so it's kind of weird on that front. But on the, and I hate to even do this, but on the Maple Leafs front, $5 million, too much for Jack Campbell, but they had no problem giving over $5 million to Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov.
I mean, that's like I said, weird goaltending moves in Canada this year.
Totally, and it's kind of ironic to me that Jack Campbell is sort of on both ends of a weird goalie move. The team he went to, and obviously the team he came from as well. But to your point about the forwards, like just the way they scored, like they're gonna get buckets of goals this year, and I guess if you're an Oilers fan, you're hoping that the goals for can mitigate any potential slip ups that Jack Campbell has.
Yeah, I think I think this team is a team. There's a few. There are very few teams in the league where I would sit here and comfortably say this is a team that can outscore any problems they have. The Oilers are one of them.
Totally.
Absolutely one of them. And again, it'll be interesting to see what Jack Campbell. I mean, it's interesting because obviously Jack Campbell's there. Stuart Skinner's going to back him up this year. It looks like. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does with more ice time. I think Stuart Skinner probably should have played more last year. I think Mikko Koskinen's a terrible goalie. But it's going to be interesting because obviously look at the Edmonton Oilers. There's high expectations on this team this year.
Mm-hmm.
High expectations. So it'll be interesting to see if Stuart Skinner can be a serviceable backup, and if they get nervous in that respect, I wonder if they make a mid-season move to bring in somebody to slot in behind Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, especially to your, like you said, Stuart Skinner, he's no longer waiver exempt, so this is it.
Yeah.
If he doesn't need to come in and be the starter. Obviously, that's why you bring in Jack Campbell. But if he can't be the backup, then there's not going to be any options for him. He's going to get traded. I think it would be a fool's move to get waived, but it's certainly on the table. And as much as the starting goaltending position is a question, you do have to wonder about the backup position as well, to your point. And, it's, I don't know. Like I said, I'm still very bullish on the Edmonton Oilers.
Me too.
Spoiler alert, I think they're going to be second in the division. But again, it's not going to be without some nervous moments.
Yeah, fair enough. Looking at the future, obviously they've look at some of their top prospects that aren't already kind of like in the mix to make the team here. We've got like Dylan Holloway, Xavier Bourgault, Carter Savoy, and Reed Schaefer. So they've definitely got some guys still in the pipeline that I think Oilers fans should be excited about, but also have that's capital. Obviously this is a today team. This isn't a tomorrow team. So if the right deal comes up, if they find they're lacking something at the deadline, they have capital. They've got their first, second, third, fifth, sixth, and seventh round draft picks, so they do have capital to either use to bolster the team down the stretch, or use on the draft floor.
And that's the thing is, to your point, talking about just how locked up that forward group is. I mean, Draisaitl 3 years. We're pretty sure he's going to re-sign when that comes time. McDavid and Kane got 4 years left. Zach Hyman has got 6 years left. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has 7 years left. Yamamoto 2 years left, and then he's an RFA. So that top six, it's locked. It's gonna take probably a natural disaster of epic proportions to open a spot up in that top six. And so, to your point, not to say that any of these players should feel this way, but if you're Ken Holland and you're kind of reading the tea leaves on what your team needs to get better, because your top six is locked in minimum 4 years, maybe you feel comfortable moving out Jesse Puljujarvi or Dylan Holloway, which, I mean, Dylan Holloway I think is a standout player, and I think he's going to make the Oilers sooner than later here, but him, Puljujarvi, even Ryan McLeod, good young players who, yeah, you want them on your team, but if there's a way that you can make yourself better right here, right now, it wouldn't surprise me to see the Oilers maybe go down that road and see what they can get out of those players. Even if it's, it doesn't have to be a rental. It could easily be a, here's our mid-20 forward, we'll take your mid-20 defenseman, and you call it a day. You know what I mean? It's the Oilers, I think, have a lot of options on the table. To your point, they've got a lot of draft picks. They got prospect capital. They're, I feel like they're kind of just sort of side-eyeing Colorado, and it's like, all right, you guys going to tip over? Because, we want to turn.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so I look at this team. I don't know. I like this team. I think we'll I mean, are they on the right path? Obviously. This team is going to be one of the top teams in the Pacific. I will reveal where I think they finish in the Pacific after we talk about the Flames. Jerk already kind of gave us a spoiler alert. So obviously, again, I think we've given all our rankings for the other team, and obviously that only leaves the top two, and this is definitely a top two team in the Pacific, in my opinion. So where in the top two, we'll find out. Which brings us to the Calgary Flames. The Calgary Flames' current cap hit is $80,363,333, leaving them about $2.1 million in cap space. A lot of moving and shaking here. Out, Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, Matt Tkachuk, Carl Yarncroc, and Eric Goodbranson. Coming in, you hear that, right, and you would think, oh man, this is amazing. The Calgary Flames are gonna die. All right, here's the in: Nazem Kadri, Jonathan Huberto, Kevin Rooney, Ryan Carpenter, Nick Meloche, and Mackenzie Weegar. The Calgary Flames, before I continue, made like a master class of taking lemons and making lemonade, like a master class this summer.
Absolutely. I mean, we even talked about it. Like, yeah. I believe we were all in agreement that, Florida kind of got shoved in the locker on this trade, on the Matthew Tkachuk trade. I mean, Tkachuk is obviously the player they wanted, and good for them for going after it. But
yeah,
if I'm a Calgary Flames fan, I'm not even thinking about that trade. I'm purposely not talking about that trade because I don't want anybody out there who's on the Florida side to be like, ooh, did we maybe overpay? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just kind of like, oh, hey, thanks. Yep. Done deal. And then you see my smoke tracks and I'm gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're gonna teach a university class on how to build a team in spite of some pretty negative stuff going on.
Yeah.
Calgary Flames 2022. I mean, you talked about the guys who left, the guys who came in, obviously, but they're on top of that. I mean, I think the one that comes to mind is Tyler Toffoli, guys who had maybe a down year compared to their career and have a lot to prove.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because we talked a couple minutes ago, Edmonton Oilers, one of the best forward groups in the division, probably one of the best forward groups in the league. I think you can say the same thing about the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, I like their forward group. I don't know if I'm as bullish on it as I would be like in Edmonton, but again, there's like a lot of really nice players here. The only thing I think I would be nervous about with some of these contracts is just how good they might not be when they're ready to conclude. But for a team like Calgary, that's a tomorrow problem.
What are your thoughts on Huberto getting $10.5 million?
I think the 10.5 is fine. I don't hate the number. I hate the term, right? Because the guy's 29. He's going to be 31. That 10.5 kicks in. And so you're making 10.5 in the back half of your 30s. That's a lot of money. And it so rarely works out.
I mean, it's good job security for him.
For sure.
And, and that's 8 years after this year. So 9 total.
Yeah.
Of being firmly entrenched in Calgary. He's got the trade protection all the way through. I don't know how much you've dug into his extension he signed, but he's got a signing bonus every year of the deal, and the cheapest signing bonus is $5 million. So he's living all right. I love Jonathan Huberto. I remember,
me too.
There were some whispers. It probably was 3 or 4 years ago at this point where, it's like, ooh, like, is Jonathan Huberto part of the Florida Panthers plans? Do we trade him? What do we? And I'm like, Doug Wilson, make the call. You know what I mean? Like, and Florida, obviously they look dumb trading him now, if you ask me, because I think he's a better player than Matthew Tkachuk. But at the time, obviously they were smart to keep him. I mean, like he's a superstar, and he's a superstar that I think a lot of people sleep on. And
I think the one thing, like, and it was kind of typical that this obviously happens too, as when a player like that moves markets, like it was funny how quickly people's opinions of Jonathan Huberto dropped as soon as he became a Flame, like from other rival teams.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, he's not that good.
Wow. Yeah. But
and you know what? Like this again, we're big fans of team building, roster building on this podcast.
For sure.
I look at this, right, and you look at Jonathan Huberto, and the stats will bear this out. Complete package in terms of everything, but specifically a very good playmaking winger. I mean, he had 85 assists this year. Like, you know how many guys would die to have 85 points, and he had 85 assists. And so then, okay, you take a look at Calgary Flames. Okay, cool, yeah, Jonathan Huberto, super elite superstar playmaking winger, and you have Elias Lindholm, who just so happens to be a superstar elite goal scoring center.
Yep.
And to me, I look at that as like, okay, if your top line, like, this immediately what comes to mind is like, okay, if I'm building the Calgary Flames, like Jonathan Huberto, Elias Lindholm, Melker Karlsson, like that's what came to mind. Like you could put anybody on the right wing of that line, 25 goals. Be dumb.
Yeah,
25 goals.
Yeah, it's going to be, and I think that's going to be the fascinating thing, obviously, because with all the turnover, it'll be very interesting to see how this team shakes up as far as lines go, because there's obviously, like, you've basically just moved out your huge swath of your top six and brought in obviously other players that are definitely going to fit those roles. But how does that all fit together? Like, that's what I'm fascinated to see.
Well, and going back to the Edmonton Oilers, they're the soonest that they have someone in the top six expiring that's not going to have an RFA expiration status is in 3 years. So that's the soonest. Whereas you look at the Calgary Flames. I mean, yes, Nazem Kadri obviously locked up for 7 years. Jonathan Huberto currently locked up for 9 years. If you consider the end of his current contract, but like beyond that, Mangiapane 3 years and potentially out. Michael Backlund 2 years. I know Lucic is not what he was, but he's important to that team. 1 year and he's out. Blake Coleman's got 5 years, but then Lindholm 2 years, Toffoli 2 years. I mean, we'll get to the defense, but Noah Hanifin 2 years, Tanev, Zadorov, Shillington, like it's kind of now or never for Calgary. And I agree. I feel like we've been saying, with respect to the Calgary Flames, I feel like we've been saying now or never for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And, never keeps getting kicked down the road somehow. But I mean it this time. It's now or never.
It's now or never. Yeah, it's going to be this team is going to be super fascinating. You went to the defense, and again,
really quick before we go to the defense,
go ahead.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on Sean Monahan going out the door. Like I understand.
Yeah.
Like, I understand they need, obviously Mangiapane needed a new deal.
Yeah.
They needed to sign Kadri, and obviously they had to get Jonathan Huberto extended, but I don't know. I really like Sean Monahan, and I just think he's one of the, and I understand it's the nature of the business, and you can't let your feelings get too involved. But another guy who I think a lot of people sort of turned on simply because he got injured at the wrong time.
Yeah. I think obviously when you're bringing in guys like Nazem Kadri and you're signing Huberto to that, like, a big extension, obviously, like, someone had to go. Unfortunately, I like Sean Monahan. I think he's a good player. I think it's a tough pill to swallow if you're Calgary.
It's just so, and Sean Monahan is kind of just the latest in this sort of experience that's happened during the pandemic, but. I understand, like, rosters are tight, the cap is tight. I get it. I understand it. But just the list of really good players who've been traded for nothing or traded with a sweetener or flat out just waived or released. Like, it's kind of like that might be a fun podcast in the future, is like building the, like, I don't want to offend anybody, but like the COVID reject team, where it's like guys who were thrown overboard or released or whatever because of the pandemic, like build, like, that would be a really good team. I feel like there've been so many good players who it's just, we can't afford you. We got to get rid of you for nothing. Like, I'd be very curious to see that.
Yeah. I like Sean Monahan. I don't know. I think, like, are they better with the players they got today than they would be with if you take out, like, maybe a Nazem Kadri? Like, and again, I like Nazem Kadri. I don't like this contract term.
Definitely a gamble.
Yeah, like I don't like the
think
term on this deal. I think he's a hell of a player again, but I just think again the term, right? Like, and maybe I am jaded as a Sharks fan because I watch just how quickly everything can go to shit.
Right.
Right? Like we've seen because of the contract structure of our own team, like we thought we were going to get like at least 4 years of awesome. We got one. So maybe I'm jaded by that when I see like a lot of these deals that like just last. And I know, and I know some people are going to be out there being like, well, Joe Pavelski, right? Like, you know, ignoring that like
Sharks are a house of cards, right?
Right, exactly. You know, but ignoring the fact like Joe Pavelski is the exception to the rule, not the rule. Like, am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. Like the way Pavelski he's like a cheese. Like he's gotten better as he's aged. Like he's, in the words of AJ, he's a bug, not a feature.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's like, so I don't know, man. It is what it is.
And again, obviously letting Pavelski go with the benefit of hindsight,
bad.
And I can't believe we're even talking about this, but it looks like a stupid decision. It is a stupid decision.
Yeah.
But based on the information that we had in July 2019, still the right move, if you ask me.
Yeah, I would have, like, obviously with the benefit of hindsight, I wouldn't have done it. But I think, like, if you give me that option, like, 10 out of 10 times, I'm going to say go the other way. Just based on what we normally, you know, what we're dealing with here. This blue line doesn't frighten me. I don't think it's bad. But it doesn't frighten me either.
I don't know. Well, okay. Do you like it?
It's okay.
Really? Okay.
I don't. Here's the thing. Maybe this is like personal bias here. Like, I don't think that much of Noah Hanifin.
Sure. He's not a number one defenseman,
right?
I mean, they don't have a number one defenseman.
No, and that's it. I think that's what I look at, and I think that's where I have concerns.
There and I think obviously with Mark Giordano leaving, obviously there's a bit of a vacuum there. But I mean, if you're if you're Calgary Flames, you know, he came from Florida. If you're Calgary Flames, you're hoping that Mackenzie Weegar, given what he's done the last 2 seasons, you're hoping Mackenzie Weegar can at least be your number one offensive defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he's 28. How much more room does he have to grow?
Yeah.
And I think, again, with the exception of Nikita Zadorov,
mm-hmm.
I think Nikita Zadorov, I mean, he's certainly better than Eric Goodbranson, who you mentioned they got rid of.
Yes.
And by the way, Goodbranson is another guy like Cody Ceci, somehow year after year gets the big contract somehow.
Not Goodbranson at all.
No, Zadorov is better than Goodbranson, but not much. And so he's physical,
mm-hmm.
and that's, people get juiced over that. But
of course, yeah,
he's not the best skater. He's not the best puck mover. But beyond that, like Hanifin, Anderson, Tanev, Weegar, Shillington, Valimaki, like these are all NHL defensemen that I think are pretty good NHL defensemen. Like you drop them on any team in the league, bare minimum they're a middle pairing defenseman.
Fair.
And I think Calgary's depth on the blue line is really good.
Yes.
That said, you know, as I mentioned before, Giordano leaving kind of left a bit of a vacuum, and they don't have that kind of number one. You know, they have the number one power play guy in Weegar, as I said, but they don't really have that minute muncher, the guy who you can say, okay, we need you to do 28 minutes. Like, they don't have that guy. And, you know, maybe they don't think they need that guy, or maybe they know they need that guy and it's something they're working on. I don't know. But if I had to pick one kind of sort of, you know, flaming target, no pun intended, it's the lack of a number one defenseman.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like, again, like I don't dislike this blue line. There's nothing here that just screams, this is amazing to me, right?
Sure.
Like you said, it's very serviceable. I think you've got guys, like, as far as depth goes, like, I think you would have a hard time finding a deeper blue line.
Correct. I agree with that.
I just don't, like, when I look at the top end, it makes me, meh.
I get that. I mean, like they don't have like again, whatever you want to say about Darnell Nurse, like Darnell Nurse is a minute muncher,
Yep.
and they don't have that. Like I think, maybe I don't know, maybe an Anderson, maybe a Noah Hannafin, maybe you can get 24 and a half minutes out of these guys, but not 29 minutes. And I know, the Shark. There's obviously jamming in a Sharks connection. Could Burns have been a fit there? Maybe, but like just the gymnastics that would have to be done to make
The
that cap work.
gymnastics,
I don't know that it would have been worth it. But
I think it would have. I think a move like that would have fit for like the way they're built, though.
Right, like it's obvious they need that kind of defenseman, and I just wonder if when Burns was put on the table, I wonder if they did reach out.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. And if he was, yeah, it is an interesting thought. Obviously they're set in goal. Jacob Markstrom. He's really a guy who I was never really a fan of early on in his career, but I think he's turned into a hell of a goalie.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how that all transpired. Like I remember when he was on the Florida Panthers, I was like you. I'm like, this guy is supposed to be the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then goes to Vancouver, and it's like, oh, okay, all right.
He had a rough start in Vancouver too, though. Like,
he did.
Like
yeah, I thought he was going to be. Truthfully, I thought he was going to be gone as soon as he got there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty. I'll be honest. Full transparency. I'm surprised that he became what he has, just because of the way things went in Florida, the way things went in Vancouver to start. I'm definitely surprised, but at the same time, he's proven himself. And when we did our goalie tier, I think we kind of touched on it as well. But I think he's sort of, we agreed there's only two superstar goalies, but like I think Markstrom is he's banging on that door, if you ask me.
Yeah, he's definitely up there. I really like them. And then you got Vladar backing him up, which I think is fine. I think Calgary, like Edmonton, it's like, you wonder if they will, if they're having issues. But I think Vladar is a good backup.
Yeah, I mean,
is Vladar ever going to be a starter in the NHL? I don't think so, but I think he's a serviceable backup.
I mean, he's with having a goalie like Jacob Markstrom, right? Like we talked earlier, is Jack Campbell a 60-start goalie? Mm-hmm. Jacob Markstrom is, no doubt in my mind. And so, okay, that means you need Vladosh. Kevin, help me out here. You need him to play all your back-to-backs, and late in the season, your games once. Oh, it's actually Vladar. Okay, shout out to Kevin, our pronunciation guru. So with Vladar, you don't need him to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
Like 20, if you want to be overly optimistic, you need 25 starts from him.
Yeah, and I think, and again, like people, like I think, like if any Edmonton people check us out and get mad at me again, like the difference is obviously, like I think Jacob Markstrom's a more known quantity for what Calgary has, as far as I'm just like, again, I like Jack Campbell. I just don't know what you're gonna get from Jack Campbell. Whereas I think Jacob Markstrom's a far more known commodity at this point.
Absolutely, and you know what? Like the way I kind of look at it, again, we talked about it. I mean, I like Jack Campbell too. I think he's a good goalie. I think he's the right goalie to take a chance on.
Yeah,
but at the same time, call me when he's up for a Vezina.
Yeah.
Because Jacob Markstrom was this year, and 3 years ago he came in fourth, which, not technically a nominee, but the top 5 get votes. So
right, yeah, exactly.
When Jack Campbell's up for a Vezina, then we'll talk.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Kevin's getting mad that we haven't mentioned Dustin Wolf.
Yes, Dustin Wolf too, obviously.
From Gilroy, California, by the way.
Absolutely. Obviously, they're again. This is a team that, again, they're going for it, right? And they have to go for it. So I think their prospect pool still, they have some interesting prospects, obviously, including Dustin Wolf, Matt Coronado, Jacob Pelletier are 2 other guys that are definitely interesting players. But I think, again, like, as far as like draft picks go, seeing what Cap Friendly here says, because I feel like my notes are wrong. First, a second, a fourth, and a sixth. So obviously not as much draft cap. Oh, and a seventh. And then obviously like the next couple of years, it gets fascinating with all the conditions on the trades to see what they actually end up with. But obviously, look at Calgary's a team that is going for it, and I think they are. I think they're set up to be a team that's going to go for it. I think they're going to be a team that lays waste to the Pacific again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, spoiler alert, they're my Pacific Division champion.
Yeah.
I just think I know. I mean, I actually think on some level, on a lot of levels, I think Edmonton's forward depth is better than Calgary, but I think Calgary's got the top end talent at forward, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you ask me in the division, Calgary's got the best blue line. Calgary's got the best goalie. Like, on that alone, they should penalty kill their way to a division title. And then when you factor in the top end talent they have at forward, it seems like it may seem like the easy.
Like they have, and you talk about guys like Lindholm and Backlund. Like these are some of the best defensive forwards in the game as well. Like as far
totally.
as I think that's something that's like probably just doesn't get rated high enough is how well, like, not only can these guys put points up, but they are responsible in
Blake
both
Coleman
ends of the
well.
ice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I picking Calgary to win the division, I think it's easy, right? It's the easy sort of choice, but it's the right choice. I mean, again, best goaltender in the division, best defenseman in the division, and their top end talent at forward is really good. I think if I'm building this Calgary Flames team, if I'm Brad Treliving, I think I want to maybe spice up the bottom six just a little bit. And that's why you have Cody Eakin on a tryout. That's why, they've got $2.1 million in space, and that's that's actually with a pretty bare roster. So there's not really a whole lot of room to operate there. But I mean, you look at the free agency list, there's not really a whole lot of sexy names left. It's kind of like a late ad, but maybe they see again, what is a Sonny Milano? What can a Sonny Milano do for them? What can a Tyler Ennis do for them? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's one thing I would maybe want to do, it's definitely the bottom six, getting one more body in there that's maybe got a little bit more NHL experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Kevin's giving us his rankings in the chat here, so I'm going to throw that on the screen. He has Edmonton at number 1, Calgary at number 2, LA at 3, Vegas at 4, Vancouver at 5, Seattle at 6, Anaheim at 7, and the San Jose Sharks at 8. So that is from Mr. Kevin Lacey in the chat. I struggle with the top two, kind of like I did the middle of the pack blender. I'm putting Edmonton at 1, mostly because I don't want the Edmonton fans to yell at me again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like last time, I was going to lose my citizenship. It was bad. The reason I'm going to put Edmonton ahead of Calgary is just because I think Edmonton during the regular season can outscore any problem they have. And they're going to score buckets of goals.
Right,
and buckets and buckets of goals.
Right, and to your point, like, goals. I mean, goals are what, like, okay, it sounds so stupid. Like, yes, obviously, you need goals to win, but like, a lot of very rarely do you see this stout defensive team, being as like a sexy pick in the regular season. Like, it's goals. You score a bucket of goals, and you make the playoffs off based off scoring a bucket of goals, and then the playoffs get tighter.
McDavid's going to have 120 points, and Draisaitl's going to be right there with them.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be dumb. I think Calgary is a really good team. I think it's Edmonton. Like, whereas in previous years, I'd tell you it like Vegas and everyone else. No, it's Edmonton, Calgary, and everyone else.
Right.
That's the way I see the division this year. Like Edmonton, Calgary. I'm going to put Edmonton in first. I'm going to put Calgary in second. I think they're both really good teams. I just think they're two different teams, right? I think Calgary is definitely the better defensive team. I don't think they're going to put up goals like the Oilers are.
No, it's going to be an interesting sort of balancing act because I feel like obviously I do agree with you. I think Edmonton is going to obviously score more goals than Calgary does. I think Calgary's better defensively.
They are. I would agree. I think like defensively, goaltending, I think it's fine. I think in the playoffs that matters more.
Right, and it's going to be very interesting to obviously compare the two.
But you would think that last year, and then Calgary got bounced by the Oilers. So
right, I still think it's going to be interesting to see where the two shake out. Right, obviously, you said you have Edmonton at number one. I have Calgary at number one, but I don't think either of us would be too surprised if our predictions flipped.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it doesn't make for great podcast to be like, well, anything could happen. The middle's a blender, the top's a blender, the bottom's kind of the only thing that I feel like really is set in stone. And it was interesting because there was odds released today for bottom records, and they had Anaheim with better odds to finish lower than the Sharks, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, I feel like they should have the same odds just based on where they're both at. But
yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, so I'm going to see if I can remember if I can rhyme this off properly now. So I would have Edmonton, Calgary. I believe I had Vegas in third. I had Vancouver in fourth. I had LA in fifth. But again, that middle blender, that could throw darts. But that's just the way I'm feeling it. I hate saying it because I feel like it really doesn't give LA a lot of credit, but I just think those three teams are so tight that it could go any way. It's not a diss on the Kings at all. Even though as a Shark fan they're my mortal enemy. And then after where do we leave off? So that would leave Anaheim, Seattle, San Jose. Seattle, Anaheim, San Jose, something like that.
See, that's the thing, and I mentioned it at the very beginning of our first, kind of know your enemy podcast was that my division ranking, it's going to change week to week as I remember certain things.
Right.
So my ranking, and again, if you go back and you listen to the last 4 podcasts and you say, "Oh, wait, you said this time," you're just going to have to roll with it because I don't remember what I said. But Calgary, Edmonton obviously is the top 2.
Right.
In, Blenderville, I know I said LA 3. See, this is where I'm stumped. I can't remember if I said Vancouver, Vegas or Vegas, Vancouver.
I'd have to go back.
I'm going to say Vancouver, Vegas. I'm going to be bold.
Okay.
And then in the dumpster, I think you're looking at Anaheim, Seattle, San Jose. So I really think the only difference we have is the top 2 and then the blender.
Yeah. What did you think of the contract for Jordan Kyrou?
I love Jordan Kyrou.
Me too.
I almost made money off of him at the All-Star game. So, I was stupid and didn't place the bet. So that's my fault. But a guy that I like enough to think about putting money on to do something spectacular. But that said, I think that is a rich contract for him. Again, we like the player on this show. 75 points in 74 games. Incredible season. Obviously a big part of St. Louis's future. And even though, this is not know your enemy Central Division, but no. I think St. Louis Blues are one of the top teams in the Central Division, despite the fact that they're kind of in a transition. And Jordan Kyrou is obviously a big part of that transition into some different players. But, oh man, he's got one more year on his current contract. If you just see what happens, I don't know how much more money he could ask for.
Did just say, well, Robert Thomas just got this, so that's what you're giving me, since their previous deals also matched.
Right, and I know when we talked about the Robert Thomas extension, I know Kevin was very complimentary of it, and I like it too. I like Robert Thomas, but I felt the same way where it's like, wow, and same thing. He's got one more year on his deal. You know, if he had another good year, how much more money could he command?
Yeah,
and both these guys, both good players, but it's a lot of cash to give up so soon. And you know, if you're a St. Louis Blues fan, I hope you're okay with that.
yeah, I'd be curious. It's one of the things I should reach out to one of the Let's Go Blues guys and see what they think. I'd be fascinated.
And you know what? There's some. I mean, obviously, who's to say what's going to happen? We're still a year out, but you know, Ryan O'Reilly and Vladimir Tarasenko both making $7.5 million. They're going to be free agents next summer. So, if St. Louis goes a different direction, kind of mitigates the big jump in contract with those two players. And I think it's interesting. Actually, I'm just looking at it right now. So both players signed. This is actually kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Both players signed 8-year deals that are paying them $8.25 million per year, and they're both coming off of 2-year deals that pay them $2.8 million a year. I don't know if it's like premeditated from the beginning that like, hey, we got to match these guys up, but I think that's interesting that they've both had, you know, they both look to be the future of the Blues, and they both have had 2 identical contracts.
Right. Yeah, it's some fascinating stuff. I mean, so that was our obviously our look at the division. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed doing it. I think, you know, it's always interesting to look at like what's going on as far as the division goes. I think it's going to be, again, this season, it's hard to get excited for this season. Like, as a Sharks, I think as a hockey fan, it's always like it's easy to get excited for the season. Like, it's just nice. It's going to be nice to have hockey back. Obviously, this weekend there's going to be the rookie thingy. I know it's supposed to be, at least there's going to be audio on the Sharks audio network, but I don't know about like if they're going to actually stream it anywhere, which will annoy me if they don't, because generally other teams that have hosted this thing, they usually stream the games, and I haven't seen anything from the Sharks yet about being able to watch the games other than those that get to go. So that's super annoying right now.
Yeah, all I saw was that it was just on the Sharks audio network.
Yeah, which super annoys me. So I think
and you'd think like, I mean, the building's been open for like a month. It's a new frickin' building. You're telling me that they couldn't have installed like television setup? Like, I should say better than like an AHL television setup.
I don't know, man. I mean, like I'm hoping to get to watch, but like if we can't, then obviously like you can only glean so much from audio.
Right.
So like I don't know what's next for our show is what I'm trying to get to. As far as the rest of the off season goes, because if they don't stream this thing, I can't watch. So obviously I can't talk about something. I'm not going to talk about something I listened to on an audio.
Kevin will have to be our man on the scene.
So Kevin will have to be our man on the scene. So obviously keep track of Kevin's Twitter at KevinLacey22. So I don't know. Like I think at some point I do want to do a Barracuda preview with Kevin, just as obviously making schedules align for that to happen. But I mean, other than that, I don't know, man.
I guess so. And you know, I don't want to steal your moment. You know, if you have anything announcement worthy to say, I want you to say it. But what I would say is, so between now and the beginning of the NHL regular season, there's 3 Wednesdays. Mm-hmm. I only say Wednesday because we've done shows every Wednesday except for I believe 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. So between now and the beginning of the regular season, there's 3 Wednesdays. I guess what it boils down to is, does the audience have an appetite for 3 more TTGs?
It's true. I don't know. I mean, we have to have content. Like, we have to have something to come on here and talk about.
That's the other caveat to it.
Right. Like, and that's what I said. Like, I obviously with like the rookie thing, like, I think we'll see what happens if we can, you know, maybe if the Sharks don't stream it, maybe other teams will stream the games, and then we can, like if I can see something, then we would obviously have something to talk about there. But I mean, for us, like, I'm not local, you're no longer local. It makes it very hard to talk about things that I don't want to just talk about things that I've heard secondhand. Like, that'd make for a really shitty podcast. As far as Teal Tinted Glasses goes going forward, normally when the regular season starts, TTG usually gets put back in the box until the next summer. This season coming, it's not going to be that way, but it's not going to continue. TTG is going to continue into the season, but it is not going to continue in its current form. So let me explain that. So for one, we sadly lose Dirk back to the pucknologists. Big tears. However, what I've envisioned for Teal Tinted Glasses going into the season is it's not going to be a regular thing. It's going to be a Barracuda show. It's going to focus on the Barracuda. And so I'm hoping to do a lot of Barracuda coverage this year. I don't know how regular, like, I don't know if it's going to be like a twice a month thing or what. I haven't decided that yet. There's a lot of details I still want to work out. I know Mark has talked to us about doing a prospect thing, and I'm hoping to roll that into Teal Tinted Glasses. So what I think what'll happen for Teal Tinted Glasses going forward, I think you'll see a lot more Mark on it. You won't see Jerk until the summer. And then obviously Kevin, as he's available, has said that he's going to come and obviously be a part of the Barracuda coverage. So that is what Teal Tinted Glasses is going to be. Obviously, there's still things that I have to work out as we get closer to the season, because it's hard, right? Because there's a lot of games going on, and we got to try and figure out how to fit it in with obviously game schedules, and obviously Sunday nights obviously crossed out because that is pucknologist, and I wouldn't do that obviously. So we'd have to find a different night where there's not a game, and I'm not, I don't want to be like, okay, this is going to be a night, and if there's a game, then we're just going to take over. No, I don't want to do that. I want to have it focused on being a Barracuda thing. Is it going to be a Barracuda post-game show? No. I don't think that. I think it'd be a lot of work, for one, to have to do after darks for Barracuda games and Shark games. I think that would be a lot. So I think it's going to be probably 1 or 2 shows a month. I'm hoping that we'll get to talk to Nick Nolenberger, and we will see. So again, we'll see. So that is the future of Teal Tinted Glasses. So we will continue. It'll just kind of continue in a new form. And then come the summer, we'll probably go back to doing the same rinky-dink operation we've done the last few summers.
I was gonna say, so I'm kind of picturing in my head, and so the in-season version, which again, I want to reiterate, like, Pucknologist is during the season. Mm-hmm. Teal Tinted Glasses is during the summer. Like, if anybody's worried, if anybody thinks I'm being thrown, made to walk the plank, that's not the case here. But I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, okay, so this coming up this year, what is this going to be like TTG version 5.0? I think at this point, it's evolved a lot, but it's stuck around a lot. But I think that's awesome.
I think it's cool because, like, I think when you go back to like earlier iterations of Teal Tinted Glasses, like that was the Barracuda show,
mm-hmm.
right? Yeah. So I think it's only fitting that we kind of go back to that a little bit. I think it just fits
totally.
So yeah, so that is the future of Teal Tinted Glasses.
And I won't be, and again, just because again, my being somebody who does 2 podcasts with Teal Town USA, I prefer to only be doing one at a time, just for free time and production value purposes. But there's no reason I couldn't bring out the old Avatar on a random day in January. Yeah, I mean, the NHL All-Star break is a thing, and maybe the Barracuda will still be doing things. I don't know.
Kevin in the chat, TTG white and gold. I love it.
I was gonna say like TTG Wolfpack, but
I love it. Love it. Yeah, so I hope people are excited for that. Obviously, again, like I said, I don't know what we're gonna do going forward. If we have things to talk about and we can get our schedules to work out, I think we could. So kind of just watch our Twitter, watch the Teal Town Twitter. If we can fit in a couple more Teal Tinted Glasses, I think that's we will definitely do it if there's something to talk about. Other than that, the next time you will see us is when I can nail Kevin's feet to the floor to do a Barracuda preview, kind of leading into the season. And then it kind of, and then it'll shift to being like the new TTG, kind of like the old TTG, but different. All right. I think we've rambled on here long enough. Hockey Jerk, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts.
These could be the final thoughts.
Yeah, this could be it. Final thoughts. If this is it for TTG this summer, I'll see you next year, because obviously we don't talk any other time, right? I'm just kidding.
We all go back to our own little offices and we throw things at each other.
Yeah. No, if this is it, for this year, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, like don't get me wrong, me and AJ every Sunday, I live for that. It's so much fun doing that. But I also have fun. It's nice to do different things sometimes, and so it's nice. I get my sort of game analysis, shark analysis with AJ, and then with you and with Kevin, it's kind of more like, let's be goofy and let's talk about the rest of the NHL and make wrestling references and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's all fun all around. And I don't want to give too much inside baseball here, but let's just say there's more to come on the content side, which, I mean, this will be the first time in a while that we'll have three active, I don't want to say brands, but
shows.
3 active shows, pieces of content going on in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be really excited. Obviously, if Teal Town is your source for Sharks fan-centric media happenings, that's where you're going to want to be. I mean, we're hoping that this is our best year yet. We're hoping every, subsequent year is our best year yet. But on the content side, I think you're going to see a lot more, and I hope it turns your crank as much as it does for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just want to I'm really big on gratitude. So obviously I'm super appreciative of you guys that, came along for, obviously, we did some shows that had a ton of Sharks news, and, obviously we had a lot of turnout for that. And we had shows like, other shows where we haven't had a lot of Sharks news to talk about. We've talked about other things, and you guys have come along for the ride. And I'm always super appreciative that you guys have come along and do it. It always makes me happy, when the summer would come up and everyone's like, TTG? Are we doing TTG? Come on, TTG, make an announcement. So, I mean, it's really awesome that you guys continue to support us. And, like I said, this is fun, but it's more fun when there's a demand for it. And it's always nice to get approached about, oh God, it's summer. TTG's coming back, right? Right, Ian? Make it come back. And yeah, definitely come back. As long as people want it, we're going to do it. So I really appreciate you guys coming along for the highs, the lows, the definite dog days of summer, which we've definitely been in for a while now. And I super appreciate all the kind support and the viewership and everything else. And like I said, if you ever want to help us out, easy things to do, hit like. Leave us a comment if there's something that you think we got wrong, and tell a friend. But other than that, I'm going to get us the hell out of here. Again, the drill. If you want to find us, you can always find us at tealtownusa.com, where you can find all our podcasts, all our articles, all that fun stuff. If you are not subscribed to this video, now is the perfect time to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell if you want to be notified when we go on air. Again, hit us up on Twitter. He is at hockey_jerk. I am at Ian Blogs Hockey. Kevin Lacey is at Kevin Lacey 22. And again, guys, we super appreciate you guys being with us for the summer. And if this is it for the summer, then it's been a hell of a ride. And thanks for coming along with us.
Bye.